Hello, my name is Ivanur, and today I want to talk about the grief cycle from Kübler-Ross. The reason why I want to talk about it is that although it was originally created for things that happen in the personal sphere, I also noticed that this is something that is happening quite often also in the work environment, and it's really important for managers and coaches, team leads, but also team members to understand a little bit what's going on. This is not a theoretically very deep thing, and I'm not a psychologist, so I'll definitely uh, make mistakes. And if you want to have real support on grief, you need to look for a professional in these kind of things. But I do think that understanding parts of this is really good for all kind of people. So let's jump into that. And typically when we talk about loss, and when Elizabeth Kubler-Ross created or talked about that cycle, this was mainly focused on that. But over the years, many people have seen that actually it is also true in all kind of situations. So when people feel that they have a relationship that they're losing a friendship, having an animal that is lost or is dead is having the same thing. If their job is at loss, or even if they have to change teams, if they lose a colleague, if there's a favorite client that's going away, a favorite feature. So in all kind of different kind of situations, people are seeing and feeling grief and come into that cycle. Um, and I want to, so let me show, let me bring this a little bit bigger on the screen, and let's bring myself back. The first stage is, and it's dangerous to call it the first stage, I'll explain that in a minute, but this stage is really about denial. In the very first moment, and for most cases, this is happening, and the first thing for most people, again, not for every or not for everyone, denial, avoidance. So this feels different than for the people that know the responsibility process. There is also a denial in there, but there it's really that people don't realize that they have a problem. Here it's people don't want to realize it. Well, maybe not on purpose, but somehow in their brain something happens that they're in shock, they're in fear, and so they're doing all kind of things to not see that they have lost something or someone. And I said the first stage, you'll see multiple stages here. But it became clear over the years that for many people, they say that people might jump to from one stage to the other and might jump back and forth on different kind of things. Um, so it's not represented here as a circle, but I do think many of these stages, people sometimes fall back into the different kind of stages. Um, Even if it's for the smaller losses, whatever that means, because what for me might be a small loss might be a big loss for your identity, for you. Um, but even when it's in a smaller cycle or smaller grief, for most people recognize these different kind of stages. That stage of denial, what really our best way to help as a coach, as a manager, or as a team member is giving information and communication, making sure that it's very clear what happened, what's the current situation. So we have to give as much information as we. This is not about convincing them that it's really over, that that situation is done, or that that person really is dead. This is really giving that information and staying on the facts, and being open and communicative about that. The next stage is anger, frustration, anxiety. Um, for many people, at work especially, we feel like, oh, we shouldn't allow these kind of emotions at work. And I do think that's wrong. It's perfectly okay to be angry at work. What is not okay is to act out that anger. Meaning, it's not okay to start fighting. It's not okay to throw things at people. Even yelling in most companies we would not allow. but stating, okay, this fact, the fact that that team dissembles, or that fact that this colleague is going away, that makes me angry. If you can say that in a calm way, that actually helps to have people recognize these kind of feeling. Of course, in the angry state, it's really hard to stay calm. Um, but the more we allow these kind of possibilities, and we, in that environment, create that environment where people can talk about their frustration, can talk about their anger, it actually helps, because pushing it away actually makes it bubble up harder, and at a later stage, and might be even, yeah, more dangerous, whatever that means at that kind of step. The support, again, information and communication is the thing that helps best. The next stage, or the third stage, is bargaining. And what happens here is that people start to tell their own stories. They have all kind of ideas in their head, and they say like, oh, but if this person didn't do that, and if we would have done that, and if that manager or this person, or if I would have called my mom, then she would not have whatever. These are all stories that people make up, and sometimes they're true, but usually they don't help people, because they're still like in some kind of denial, like, okay, it's, we don't want to accept really the situation as it is, so we're struggling to find a meaning, and we create all kind of stories for ourselves to explain why happened what happened there. So that is, what is happening there. People will reach out to a lot of others. It might be old people, or people that were used to be in their life before, old friends, old lovers, but it also might be old colleagues, or yeah, reaching out to different parts of a company, if they try to understand what's happening. So a lot of the best way to support people is so-called emotional support. And with emotional support, that means, for me, a lot of listening. This is not about convincing. This is not about accepting what people saying. If they are saying a certain story that is not true, we shouldn't really go along with it. We should listen, and we might say, okay, I have a different viewpoint. Maybe it's not the time to argue, but definitely not say, okay, I fully agree with you. That's not always needed. Actually, it might backfire, because people might feel you're not authentic at that moment. But just not going along with them is important. And again, pushing back might make them more angry again, or put them in another stage. So might not help there as well. The next stage is depression, where people really feel helplessness. They're in some kind of flight mode, where anger might be more the fight mode. This is more the flight mode. They're overwhelmed. I'm not a psychologist, so I might not know what the exact reason of this flow of the way it's drawn. But for me, the reason why I would say depression is on an upper curve feels like people are no longer in denial. They're kind of accepting the situation, but it makes them sad, and it makes them feel overwhelmed, and so it's doesn't they feel actually worse off, because it's much more what we call more negative feelings. Um, I'm not sure if anger is positive, but it's a more, gives much more energy, where depression takes away energy. So people might feel a lot worse in this situation, but actually it's also important that people do feel that loss. It's okay to feel that loss. Again, I'm not talking about when people are in a full mode depression, that's okay. If people are there, they need different kind of help. They need professional support, um, not something colleagues or friends can help with. Um, but not every loss will result in a full blown depression. Still, it will be some kind of depressive feelings. And again, there, emotional support is the same thing that we need to do as a best way to help in that situation. The next stage is acceptance. And so this is the first moment when people really are open to explore options, try to create a new plan in place, moving on. if it's okay, I need to move on in my life without that lost lover, or I need to move on and find a new job. And I think it's really important that we also realize that this is usually after we've been to a part of that cycle, and it could be that people might move back, and then after some acceptance that they might be angry again, or be, yeah, being being in some kind of really cycling through these kind of emotions. um, but pushing people towards exceptions and pushing people towards moving on um, is usually not helping. Also, what is important is that sometimes, as management or coaches or other different people or people from different part of the company, we might know more about an upcoming change. We might be thinking, we might be realizing it earlier because we have more life experience, but we also might have been informed earlier on. And because of that, we might have been already, we might already be in a different part of that cycle. We might already be at the acceptance level at the moment that things are announced or things become visible to the rest of the company. And that's why we don't understand that people might not just move on and accept it. And we realize that maybe we've been to these same stages in the days or weeks before as well. So that is really important that we do realize that. Um, and that same thing is for a marriage that falls apart. From a friend, you might have seen it already. You might have thought or even discussed it with your partner, like, this relationship, I'm not sure how long they will survive. And for you, it might be, yeah, you might already be in a different stage, and the person that was in that relationship might completely not understand it. And it's very similar when things at work happen. The best way to help in the acceptance phase, according to this research, is guidance and direction. Again, if you're at work situation, these are the things that want people are ready to accept, that management, that coaches, that team leaders, but also team members help out and give direction to people who are now ready to go to the next step. If it's taking for a new team, okay, this is what the structure of the new team is going to be. This is what we'll expect from you. This is what we'll expect from your team members. This is what we don't expect from you. These kind of things, these kind of guidance can really be helpful for people once they're in this stage. I want to go to that a list of symptoms of grief. Now, it's really important to recognize that these are all symptoms that we all recognize and that we will all have and had at different stages that might have nothing to do with loss. I mean, I think all of us, at least me, I have been crying a lot also for very pleasant moments in my life. Definitely nothing to do with loss. I've had headaches at moments that I don't think are related to loss or anything like that. Difficulty sleeping. Well, that we've as parents we all have situations we had that. Okay, we might have been in some kind of loss of our previous life, that part, but usually it's much more of that new human being that came into our life. So it's definitely not or for most of us not part of symptoms of grief. But it's interesting for me, this list, I use this for myself. If I look at this list and if I recognize a lot of things on that list, I might think like, is there something, did I lose something in my life? So that might be using this list to talk to others and saying, oh, I think you're in grief because you have this and that, usually backfires. So be very careful on how to use that list. This list is much more for yourself, because also in a situation that we as managers or coaches or team leads want to help out other people, we might actually have to realize that maybe we are also in some kind of grief cycle for whatever. It could be because we lose people in a team, because we lose control, because we lose whatever. it might also be important. I want to finish off with stating this is all coming from two books from Elizabeth Kübler-Ross. Like I said in the beginning, written mostly on that, or that was originally about, but it's actually yeah, came to these 5 stages are just much more than about that. It's about all kind of grief and grieving. It's for many managers or coaches that might be too far to read it. We are not supposed to be psychologists, we're not therapists at all, so please don't try to do that. If you think somebody needs this kind of help, please advise them to go to real professional people. But I wanted to share this because I do think that it is helpful for everybody in the workplace to know a little bit what might be going on when people feel like this. Thank you very much for listening.